We are in the midst of important times and hopefully times that will create lasting change. In that spirit, Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren is here. Two announcements from the conference today, one on the voter registration initiative. We'll get to that in a second. But let's start off with the Anti-Hate, Anti-Racism Coalition. You announced this back on June 1st. Today you announced the members. Give us an idea of the type of person on here and why they're on here.
Yeah, the type of person on here are individuals within our Big Ten Conference, and they range from student athletes to coaches to athletic directors to chancellors, presidents, alumni, some of our partners, and people in our conference office. It will take passion to be involved with this coalition. We're at an interesting time. We're at an inflection point in our society. And I was also honored to have individuals from the Big Ten Network reach out to say that they wanted to join. I think what people are realizing here in society right now, regardless of your gender, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your financial status, regardless of your color, our country is in a rough spot right now. And we've been ignoring many of these issues regarding hate and racism for many years, and we can no longer ignore them. And so the great thing about this coalition, I'm looking forward to people coming together to address these issues in society, to make this world a better place. I am energized about the future. This is probably the most positive I've been and hopeful I've been about our future as a country. I was really concerned. I've been incredibly concerned these last couple of years, and quite naturally this year, when you see what's happened, whether you see it on the news or read about it in the newspaper, but, to see a man like Ahmaud Arbery basically shot down, and then hear what happened with Breonna Taylor. I think back up to what happened with Emmett Till, but then currently being a person who lived in the Twin Cities in Minnesota for 15 years to see what happened to Mr. George Floyd it was awful. I mean, this is horrific. These people were murdered. And so when you hear these type of things, I just think we're at a point in time in society, our young people, our future generation, our kids, our grandkids, they deserve better. And I think we as adults need to come together. We have some incredibly bright student athletes in our Big Ten Conference who are passionate, who want to exercise their right to speak, who want to exercise their right to basically be leaders. And this coalition will allow our student athletes and others in our conference, especially our coaches and our chancellors and presidents and others, to be able to come together and make the world a better place.
And you mentioned, whether it's a Gene Smith as an AD, a Jim Harbaugh as a coach, a Fran McCaffrey as a basketball coach, there are current student athletes on this coalition. Simply put, what will their task be? What will they do as members of this coalition?
I think their task will be to be able to communicate in a transparent situation. I mean, one thing about all families, and I consider us in the Big Ten a family, and really college athletics is a family, and even the world. I mean, we're a family, maybe extended family members, but one thing that families have to do to be able to move forward is to be able to communicate. And I know from where I stand regarding this coalition, I want to be able to listen. What's important to our student athletes on our campuses? How can we help them? What can we do to encourage them, to empower them, to continually embrace them? What programs can we create that will stand the test of time, that will endure? This is not something that we're doing to check the box or because of a few items that happened this year. This is something that's been coming for a long time. And one of the reasons why I'm so hopeful about the future is the fact that I think we hit rock bottom as a country over the last month. And this now affords us an opportunity to come together as a people, to do better, to be better. And we have to recognize some of these issues that have gone on in our community for many years regarding hate and regarding racism, and that certain people, especially Black people, have been marginalized and haven't been afforded opportunities that they so well deserve, but then also have been the target of certain confrontations with police. And so it's one thing to maybe complain about it, but I look forward for us to come together to take very positive action that we can make sure to get these issues out on the table, to be able to talk about them in the Big Ten, and for people to be able to lean into them, understanding that their goal is to go to college and to be a student athlete and work hard in the classroom and on the playing field. But also this will provide them an opportunity to be involved with something that will really effectuate change, not only in the Big Ten, but across the country and across the world.
You said a couple interesting things in those first two answers. One was that you think we as a country perhaps have hit rock bottom, and two, you're as optimistic about our future as ever. How do those two facts in your head, how do those go together?
I think we have no place to go but up. I mean, I really do. When I saw, George Floyd really, murdered right in front of our eyes, and so many times it's one thing to read about certain horrific events in a history book, and it's even one thing to hear your parents or grandparents to tell you horrific stories, but when you see it firsthand, that watching that video really, touched my deepest core in my heart at a level that I don't know had ever been touched before. It was traumatic. And when you see something like that, you only have a couple choices. Either you can say it didn't happen, or you can say what happened was awful, but then you have to say, then what am I going to do about it? And that's one of the reasons why I made a personal decision that, one, my family, but two, collectively, that we need to make sure that we take some tangible steps in the Big Ten Conference, that we have to seek change. I mean, we really do, at multiple levels. This is not being judgmental of anyone, but now this is our opportunity to come together and do everything we possibly can to create change for the better.
Tangible steps is an interesting way to phrase it, and I think an important one too. What are those? Like if someone were to come up to you and say, Kevin, what can I do to help combat racism? How do you respond to that?
Well, first thing you can do is to be able to enter into honest dialogue. And I think that's part of the reason the way racism and hate have been able to live and thrive in our country and in the world for so many years is that people haven't felt comfortable to talk about these issues. So the first thing you can do is to really talk about these issues, share your thoughts, ask questions, just seek information, communicate. And one of the reasons why our country has probably, ended up in the position that we're in today is that we have just talked past each other. We've been so concerned about which political party you belong to and what do you believe in and who you voted for. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we are human beings. We have a responsibility to make this world a better place, to take care of our young people, to show leadership with them, and to sit down across the table to say, we have issues. There's some issues, but issues really create opportunities. And now we have opportunities to work together more in a collaborative manner to get better. And that's why one of the reasons why we feel so strong about our voter registration initiative, because I'm a big believer that the ability to vote is the most powerful thing that you can do to combat racism, to combat hate, and to create social change. Because again, talking is the first step, communicating is the first step. But if you really want to make change in your community and you don't like how things are being run, then study who's on your school board, study who's the local sheriff, study who your district attorney is, study who your attorney general is, and do your homework and register to vote and get other people to vote. Because that's it's the only way we're going to make change. And I've read articles that are shocking. There was one in Virginia in 2017 where the winner of a political race came down to a coin flip. And so I hear so many times, and I hear so many people that I talk with that will say, well, my vote really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What can one vote can do? One vote can make a decision. And so when you start thinking about collective force that we have in the Big Ten with almost 10,000 student athletes, for us to come together to make sure that we educate each other, that we're educated ourselves, that we vote, that we make sure that there's no voter suppression that occurs, is that we have an opportunity to take a stance on certain issues that are bothering us and bothering everyone. And because we have so many leaders on our campus, especially with our student athletes, I'm excited to see how our voter registration platform really comes together with our anti-racism and anti-hate coalition.
So that brings us right to the second major announcement, which is the voter registration initiative. I think you did a great job explaining why it is important for people to register to vote and to vote. But this specific initiative, what will it consist of?
What it consists of one, we got to educate people. There's so many people that either may not even know how old you have to be to vote, or the process, or, well, I go to school in Michigan, but I'm from California. I can't vote in Michigan. But to be able to understand how the absentee ballot system works, and to deal with the voter suppression issues, but really just to understand the importance of voting. It's always good to vote, but it's even better to vote as an educated voter. And so that's one of the reasons why we want to partner with the civil rights organization out of Washington, D.C., because this is what they do. And all of our people on our coalition will come together. Our first focus will be on the importance of voting and being registered to vote. And so we'll be able to work together with that. And again, this is not just this year is an election year. This is a year-round situation. You should be cognizant of the political process. You should understand the power that you have to vote and to be able to articulate that in a manner. What do you have to do? A lot of people don't understand that you select your school board from your community. And so we want to focus on not only local voter registration initiatives, but things that impact local politics, but also national politics. But for people to really understand that, yes, you can vote for your sheriff. Yes, you can vote for who's on your school board. Why is that important? Because it's those individuals who make policy, who come together, who make decisions, and which, if they make the wrong decisions, then they impact, issues that we're dealing with in our community. And so we only can be as good as the people in the position who are making decisions. But I think the first stance, especially on our college campuses, our college students in the Big Ten and all around the country, they have power in numbers. And so I want to make sure, which I said from day one, this was one of my key cornerstones, was the mental health and wellness, our financial literacy and wellness, and our voter registration, is that we need to collectively as a conference come together and understand what it means and the power of what we have in our hands when we're able to go and cast a ballot at the ballot box.
I'm curious how you can encourage a young person. Young people are known historically to not vote nearly as much as everybody else. I think of myself as an 18-year-old. That was my first chance to vote, and I didn't, and I'm embarrassed of it now. But at the time, I just didn't care. So how do you do that? How do you encourage someone to not only vote, but to be informed, like you said, to have the education about the choice you're actually making?
Mike, that's a wonderful question. And that I would tell people, if you're questioning at all whether to vote, and what's interesting about some of our student athletes too, this will be the first time in their lives that they will be in a position to vote. But I would tell anyone who has a question, I've had this discussion with family members and friends and business associates about, really, why should I vote? I don't understand. Why is that really important? I said, all you need to do is just go on the internet and type in George Floyd and sit there and watch that video for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And after you watch that, I will guarantee you is that people will be driven to vote, because that tells the whole story. Those things can't happen anymore. They cannot happen. And so that right there, I think, quite naturally, unfortunate, tragic death. But we have a responsibility to make sure that the people who've lost their lives, that they didn't live or die in vain, that we took active steps, tangible steps to make sure we make a change. And I think by us coming together to be able to do this, to be able to vote, to understand the registering, to vote, how important that is. I mean, voter suppression still goes on to today. Yeah. And when you think about that, 5 votes here, 6 votes here, 10 votes here, 1 vote could impact an election or put someone into office that can either do great things for society or ruin a community. People will understand the importance of vote. And I'm confident with our student athletes and how focused they are to understand where we are in our communities and in our country, that I'm confident that this will be something that they'll embrace.
Whether it's the voter registration initiative or the anti-hate, anti-racism coalition, What will you be looking for down the line to know that these initiatives have been working, that they're moving things forward?
If one person who had racial thoughts or thoughts of hate in their mind, or one person who was not planning to vote, who was not registered to vote, either change those thoughts of racism, change those thoughts of hate, and decided to go register and to actually vote, everything we do is worth it. One person, and that's it. And so many times people get caught up in numbers. Well, how many people actually did it? If one person, because you never know how one person can really change the world, how that person may be in a position to really effectuate change. So that's where our focus is to make sure that we create an environment that embraces everyone to come together to deal with some of the systemic racial issues that have existed in all of our communities, to be able to talk about them, even communicate like this. I'm encouraged, I'm hopeful, although one side of my heart was distraught, a couple weeks ago. But since that day, since I wrote that letter, the open letter, is that I really reached a point to say we can't go any further. And the only way we can go is up. And if we pull together as a people and put our differences down and work together, I'm confident that the Big Ten will continually be a thought leader in this area, and we'll continually be proud as far as the things that we do. And I'm excited to learn, from our student athletes and from our coaches and our chancellors and presidents to be able to come together to talk about these issues. And we'll look back at this point in time in 2020 and say that was an inflection point. We did the right thing, and we've made a difference in society going forward.
Well, let's hope so for sure. And perhaps the coalition and this initiative will both be things that help us as a society get there. Commissioner Kevin Warren, thank you for your time.
Yeah, Mike, thank you very much for all that you do, and thank you for everything that Big Ten Network does. And looking forward to work with you and keep going forward. This is very important. And again, I appreciate your heart and your passion and your professionalism.